Boo, did I scare you? I'm trying to figure out a new way to open my videos. I'm wondering if I should just get straight into it or maybe do like an opening after I've watched the video. Whatever. I Lost My Body is a story, ironically enough, about loss, love, acceptance, and change. It's genuinely one of the most impactful films I've had the good fortune of seeing in quite some time. I have no idea how I found it, but I'm quite frankly glad I did. The movie starts out with a guy losing his hand, which would be akin to losing a girlfriend for me. After that, the story seems to take place in two different points. There is after Naufel loses his hand and the hand's quest to find Naufel, and before whatever happened to Naufel to cause him to lose his hand. Because a lot of the movie is from the perspective of a hand, you get really interesting and innovative perspective shots like this. Not only that, but the amount of emotion and depth that is conveyed through just a hand is a masterwork in storytelling and art design. When a hand feels anxious, you feel anxious. When it feels a sense of relief, you feel a sense of relief. There's often long stretches where there's absolutely no dialogue, so when you do hear people talk, that makes it so much more impactful. That's also not to say that the scenes where there isn't dialogue are any less phenomenal. The sound design is superb. In between scenes of the hand trying to find Naufel, we see Naufel's life, but not from the perspective of him, but through his hand more so. From touching a snail as a child to piano lessons with his mother to the tragic death of his parents as a child. And the sadness that is portrayed as a child stands in front of his parents' grave, not only grieving them, but the grieving of his dreams. Naufel wanted to be a pianist and an astronaut. Not only is he broken, but so are his aspirations. To go from being surrounded by love and hope to having that taken away and living with family who takes a little bit of money you make working as a pizza delivery boy and becoming a husk of who you were as a child. A husk of who your parents envisioned you to become. It's heart-wrenching. It makes me think of my own family and question if my own father would be proud of me. Am I worth being proud of? But that moment of self-reflection is cut short when I see the hand kill a pigeon for protecting its eggs. I Lost My Body is so enthralling that I often catch myself so engrossed and so emotionally attached that I have to step back and go, am I really rooting for a severed hand? And I think that's the beauty of storytelling, that you are somehow able to see the humanity and cheer for a hand overcoming adversity, like being jumped by a gang of subway rats. The way the movie draws parallels of isolation and loneliness between Naufel and his hand is often heart-wrenching, and I know that's a weird statement already, but to go so far as to address them as two separate entities is next level. But hear me out. You will have scenes where the hand will quote-unquote remember the accident that killed Naufel's parents as it sleeps near a river wrapped in newspaper, cold and alone. And then the movie will cut to Naufel, who delivers a pizza to a woman who's kind of an asshole to him. And while she isn't pleasant at first, Naufel mentions that he got into an accident delivering her pizza and that's why he was late, and she genuinely asks him, are you okay? Which makes him light up like a Christmas tree. To think that someone actually cares to ask anything about him, let alone his well-being, is earth-shattering to him. So much so that he gets kind of creepy and tries to find her number in a phone book and goes to her job. And while I would never condone anything he's done so far, I think there's a sense of empathy I feel towards him. His actions are quite pathetic and sad when you think about it, but this is someone who feels so alone and isolated that someone caring about him even a little bit since his parents' death is new for him. Hell, in all fairness, I still think about an Instagram model who was kind towards me through DMs because we were talking about our struggles with mental illness, and this had to be 5 or 6 years ago at this point. So I understand in a lot of ways Naufel's desire to feel connected, that someone cares about him, even though I don't really support showing up to a stranger's job and following them to their uncle's woodworking shop, which I assume is where he loses his hand, but whatever. As the movie goes on, Naufel becomes closer and closer to Gabrielle. She shows him her favorite book. He builds her an igloo of wood on top of an abandoned building, all very normal things. He finally confesses to her that he is the pizza guy she chatted with over the intercom, and Gabrielle reacts appropriately by walking away and telling Naufel that his actions are selfish, which in turn leads to a chain reaction that finally explains how Naufel lost his hand. He was hungover after going to a party and cutting wood. He was being negligent and distracted trying to catch a fly, and as soon as he catches it, his hand gets caught in the saw. And while that may seem like a dumb reason to lose an entire hand over, the fly is simultaneously important and not important. When Naufel was a child, he asked his father, how do you catch a fly? After failing a few times, his father explains, no one said it was easy. C'est la vie. The fly and Naufel's desire to catch it are obviously metaphors. Just because you want something enough doesn't mean you get it, no matter how hard you work. You're not going to win them all. Let me do a bit of reaching for a moment and say, I think the fly on a deeper level represents chaos, specifically the chaotic nature of life. And Naufel's desire for certainty or to fight against the chaos of life manifests in several ways. but none greater than when he finally catches the fly. He was certain as a child that he would be a pianist and an astronaut. He was certain that taking a job with Gabrielle's uncle would give him a shot with her. There was no trying to control chaos, and once he finally caught the fly, he was irreversibly hurt because of his need to control the situation. Earlier in the film, Naufel asks Gabrielle if she believes in fate. He goes on to explain that unless you do something drastic and unpredictable, you can't escape it. And once you do this unpredictable thing, whatever it may be, you have to keep going so fate doesn't catch up with you. And that's exactly what Naufel does. He does something crazy and unexpected so that fate can't catch up with him. This is represented by his severed hand finally catching up with him as he lays in bed listening to an old cassette tape, wallowing in his misfortune, until he does something unpredictable and is finally able to not only accept the past but leave it behind. He's accepted that life isn't easy, but that doesn't mean it has to be painful the entire time he's alive, and that realization has made him better off for it and much happier. And I think that's something we can all learn from. Pain is a very intense and powerful emotion, but it doesn't have to last forever. As cliche as it sounds, there's light at the end of the tunnel if you just keep on walking and believe that there's light at the end of the tunnel, because it's something you can only see if you believe in it. Anyway, thanks for watching.